But if I look at it, it's more of an evolution we're now in. And the biggest disruptions I think we had. Is that a correct way to look at it? Will?
Yeah, it's always dangerous to say that the biggest disruptions already happened or the biggest changes happened, but I do think that we are now kind of in an easier time slot, a more quiet time slot with fewer technologies that really are appealing and that seem to promise many new possibilities. I mean, people by now know that blockchain is something that has a certain purpose but doesn't solve most of the problems we have. We've seen the collapse of all kinds of bitcoins, stable coins. People are now learning again, also due to educational pieces like what Thomas and Carlijn did, that the whole system of creating of money and the what works promising or one that you cannot simply change with a technology, however promising or mystical it is. So I think blockchain is a good example of where people, because they did not understand it, thought it would change the world. It does not. Same thing now with AI. It will change the world and it will solve almost anything.
And for instance, with blockchain and with other disruptions, people always think, oh, now we, the little men, have more to say. It's going to be decentralized. It's going to be more democratic. But still, you end up with the same. Or am I too pessimistic?
Well, I want to react to this word disruption a bit more because before I became a journalist, I worked as a consultant, and I worked a lot with startups. And in this startup world, it has become a real thing. Everybody wants to be a disruptor. Because the theory of innovation, I think it's Christensen or some, he came up with this word and he said, well, big companies, at some point, they're too large to make large changes anymore because they earn money with the status quo, so they just want to push the old products. So if you want to have innovation, it needs to come from the outside. A new company has to start something, and then everybody wants it, and you'll become the next big thing, and then you are the status quo, and then another disruption needs to come. And this sounds really, really cool, and it happens in practice. You can find great examples. But then it became a popular thing to become an entrepreneur, make your own startup, and everybody that I met as a consultant wanted to be the next big thing. So it was just the buzzword disruption, and then I'll be the next big company that will rule the world in the coming age. Well, from all these companies, almost nobody gets there. But also, if you realize what you're actually doing, not all innovation or new technologies are immediately disruptive. They're just a little add-on on what we have. So I think we should come down from that disruptive cloud and just say, okay, we have a nice technological advancement. It's an add-on on what we already have, and it's not going to change the whole world. And
is one of those.
So up to us to determine.
Okay, to make it really concrete, what would you say is one of those disruptors who changed the world?
Well, really disruptive change. If you can really change the system. Well, I think if we talk about the monetary system that we just gave a talk about, the waterworks, right now there is innovation happening. Like, for example, central bank digital currency. I think that could become a real change of the monetary system. So that could, in potential, be a disruption of the existing monetary system.
Edwin, how do you respond? Because you said you are a disruptor, but you also built a layer which is really handy and more client-focused than what was there, but it's still a layer on the current system.
Absolutely, yeah. We are not changing the system. And I never became an entrepreneur to shout, I'm going to be disruptive. I hope what we are building is going to change something in the world, but not on the scale of what we just saw with the waterworks. For example, we are offering bank accounts now as one of the first accounting solutions in Holland for small enterprises. which is really unique. I think that it really helps entrepreneurs in a great way to automate their financial business more. We are not changing the system, but because we are still doing business with, in this case, Adyen, which has a license with the Dutch Central Bank, which uses the European Central Bank to store their money. So it's not like this is a complete changed world. It's using the same building blocks that are already there, but just in a little bit of a different way. So it's more like an evolution, which in this case really is promising for small and medium-sized enterprises in Holland. But it's not like we are changing the whole system. I do believe that maybe these small steps we are taking, because now we are, instead of the large corporate banks that are the only way to get a bank account in Holland, also you can get a bank account at Moneybird. This might open up solutions. So maybe if there's in the future a new kind of coin that's going to happen, then you don't need to convince the corporate banks to include this. It's only necessary to convince maybe Moneybird to add this to their portfolio, and then every entrepreneur can use it. So I do believe that these small steps, this evolution we are in, might be something that can change the system in the future. But let's prove it first instead of shouting, let's disrupt in the first hand.
And if you look at it, tomorrow I'm talking to Ali Nickman, so I read a lot of the things he said, and one of the things, this is a free translation, he said, well, maybe also the banking world is the most impossible to disrupt. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, there are a lot of regulations, of course.
Yeah.
But they are not there. They are there for a reason. If you look at blockchain and the way they say everything is going to be democratized, or you get your mortgage on the blockchain, everything comes down to: is there a check that you really have this house and that is sold to some people, and then again you need to go to the lawyers to fix these things. So the application of blockchain has always had the difficulty that there are reasons why there is a system like this. And I do believe that the system can be different, and there are flaws in the current system. But yeah, it's difficult to change the current system due to the amount of regulations there are.
Yeah, but Thomas, if we just seen with all the research you've done, and the isn't it just the old saying, that's not how we do things around here? And then, yeah, so every real disruption is, yeah, born to fail.
Yeah, for example...
By the way, I've got water here for you. If you
yeah,
it looks like I'm four glasses for myself. Could you pass it on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite dry here.
You mentioned disrupt Bunk Bank. I think that's a good example of a bank that really tried to disrupt the banking model. So what they first started, and they wanted to found a full reserve bank. So a bank that does not loan out money. So it just takes in deposits and then keeps your deposits safely at the central bank. But then the current regulation said you cannot do that. If you want to have a license from the Dutch National Bank, you have to loan out the money. Exactly. You have to provide loans. And it was not allowed. So then Ali Nicknam, he's an entrepreneur, he said, well, okay, then we'll work around that and we do what you want to do. And then they still became a successful bank. They're quite, or successful, well, that's still to see, but because he was earning a lot of money with his other business, so he had the capital to try this. But he founded the bank, they have customers, and they now do a little bit what he tried to do, keep money at the central bank, and apart from that, they invest in safe assets, so government bonds and things like that. So he's just mimicking his disruption. But he did not change the system yet, but he can still be there in this new environment, and probably, and also Moneybird and other new companies, they can compete with the existing banks, and if for a new, now the central bank will introduce central bank digital currency, which opens up the possibility to directly bank at the central bank, then other parties like Moneybird, who have a better interface with the customer, they can really start competing with Rabobank and ING and the banks like that. So that could open up.
Really nice to see how long Adyen is going to be able to store the money at the central bank, because they are currently doing.
Yeah.
But they are not investing the money on anyway. So I'm curious to see how long they can hold their license and keep the money at the central banks. It's a new discussion again, probably.
Yeah, you mentioned ING, which I think this morning said they made 270% more profit than last year. Yeah, then I don't want to be too pessimistic, but people are never gonna let that go, are they?
No, I think that the people are getting more and more aware of what's called in good English, highinflatie. I mean, there's too much profit going to a very specific part of society, and it's very hard to change that with the big system change. That would be kind of a utopian vision. But I do think that with the CBDIs and with also some other elements, we can bring in components into the system that allow for a gradual change. And one of those components that is now being realized is to empower individuals to be a real actor in that digital ecosystem of data and money that is now growing. The European Commission about a year ago, almost 2 years ago now, started an initiative to create so-called identity wallets for every European citizens that should be for free, that make you an actor in the digital ecosystem, allow you to link up to the digital currencies that central banks are introducing, and that also allow you to control the data about you and to manage that, and to really empower you to be a player in that field when you now are governed by the Googles, the banks, and the retailers. And that's one of those components that's now being developed through a very good vision, I think, from the European Commission, that can gradually change elements in this complex ecosystem, in this complex waterwork.
So let's also then go on to that, to the more optimistic, idealistic side. There's more empowerment. There's more. You have your own data. You have the power is more decentralized. What then if there's the utopia we saw just now, but can we look 10 years ahead and see what then would be an ideal for you?
Well, I can. I think it's really important to ask, what do you want to disrupt? So, make a distinction between the hype and things that are really going to change. Because with the blockchain, which is often mentioned already, it became a buzzword, and everybody just said, we're blockchain, and we're going to disrupt the world. And there was no plan behind it. It was just riding the wave, and then you get people.
No, but now
customers.
I can tell you what I want to disrupt. I don't want them to have 270% more profit, and I want us to have the power on our own data and have the great customer experience that I feel treasured by someone who's servicing me.
Well, go to Moneybird right now.
Yeah, but we are not a system change yet.
But then in 10
hand,
years, how will that look to me, just the regular Joe in the street?
For us at Moneybird, but we are really focusing on the whole financial side of business. We want that as soon as you start a business, that you have this button, you push it, and everything is handled. So both the accounting
also
side,
sounds
the tax
to me
side,
like you're also taking the power away from me again. I want to keep that power.
That's something. Yeah, you should have this power, absolutely.
Although
on the other hand, you don't want to have to work as an entrepreneur to handle all the financial side of your business. A lot of things you do now are not necessary as soon as the right technology is there to fix this. But on the other hand, for us as an entrepreneur, you need to have a stable financial business. Do you want to go with, as Moneybird, for example? I wouldn't gamble the money in Moneybird. by going to some kind of blockchain technology right now. You want to have a stable financial business. So the question is if the financial business or the financial market is really ripe for disruption, because it also needs to be something that is stable, that gets you the profits that you need as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but now I feel like you're going to make a lot of money off me.
But I doubt
So-
whether you really want what you say you want, because you don't want to be because if you want to have control, you're responsible for everything as well. So if you are responsible for all the small things of managing your money, then you can also lose your key, and that happened, for example, with people who had Bitcoin and they lost their key.
Oh, yeah, I had that
and
as well.
they
Yeah.
couldn't call up,
Yeah.
and you just want to call up, hey, I lost my key, can you fix it for me, because it was my life savings. So I don't think this is the disruption that most people actually want. They just like the idea, I want to be in control. But so what you want is a safe and reliable party that manages your money, and you don't want to be in this environment that we have right now, where you have a few really large players who have too much market power, and they can dominate this market, take a lot of profit, and you don't really have a choice to go anywhere else. And I think that's the big problem that we want to disrupt, the market power of a few big players.
And that's something we can at Moneybird also achieve probably. For example, ING is holding back the interest on the savings accounts now. The reason why Bunk is currently profitable is only because the interest rates are raised again by the central banks, and they give a lot of interest to their clients, but not the part that's left is profit for them. It's pure profit. If in the future, for example, we are the front ends to the businesses, and we can add maybe extra saving accounts very easily, and just say, okay, we have this 5 banks behind Moneybird that handle the money, and we just change your money to the one that gives the most profit, the most interest, and also making sure that there is a real marketplace, that these banks really need to give you the best interest and don't have a lot of profit, because also for ING, the most of the new profit is coming from this interest. And now you just don't switch your money to another bank because it's a lot of hassle.
Yeah,
and that's something we can disrupt.
And that's where you need to empower individuals to be able to switch. And if they really can switch, it's so hard to switch from a bank. We did a few months ago. Horrible. You don't do that unless you're forced, or unless you're motivated so much by bad behavior of those banks that you move out. I mean, so in 10 years, I do hope that there will be a landscape of banks, smaller banks, specialized banks, which you now have a little bit in the savings side with ISN, Triodos and things like that. You also have that with the normal commercial banks, maybe related to different visions of those banks, or different goals, sustainability banks, other banks, that you can easily move your money in between. And also, in between that, get a real marketplace, so that banks do feel competition. They don't feel competition now, and they're on the one hand protected by government, so they can't do anything wrong, and on the other hand there's no competition. And that's awful. That's not a market, that's well, I don't know how exactly you should call it, but it's an awful ecosystem that we should get out of. And in those 10 years, by empowering people to move their money and to move their data more easily and being in control of that, they will be able to choose between different, well-regulated, but hopefully smaller banks.
Yeah.
Or financial
Right
institutions.
now, right now the name of the bank is in your bank account number.
Yeah.
That's deliberately done. It was lobbied by the banks to get that accomplished, because it makes it very difficult to change banks. And if you just make these simple changes, you can already create a much more competitive landscape, and then other players can come and disrupt.
It's so interesting that what we call disruption, and it's good to end on a more positive note, that there is, in 10 years, is going to be a more decentralized, hopefully more democratic kind of a system. But also, it's disruption also going back under 100 years, when there were a lot of smaller banks throughout the Netherlands, and little insurance companies in your own hometown where you could go and know the people and know what they did with your money.